Good morning. May it please the court. President Judge Del Ricci, members of the Montgomery County Bench, distinguished guests, family, and members of the Montgomery Bar Association. I am Thomas Boulden, and today I have the honor to speak about one of the giants of the Montgomery Bar Association, past president of the Montgomery Bar, J. Brooke Aker, or as anyone who ever stepped into the Orphans Court knew him, Brooke. Brooke passed away on December 2nd, 2020, and he was 91 years old. He was born on May 22nd, 1929 in Norristown, Pennsylvania. He grew up in the Philadelphia suburbs and went to Boulden College and graduated in 1949. He went on to receive his law degree from Harvard in 1952. Brooke served in the United States Army in Korea. He is survived by his wife Dorothy, his children Stacy Thornton, Brooke Aker, Eric Aker, Kendall Radazan, and his 5 grandchildren, and his brother Leland, all of whom miss him immensely. Brooke and Dorothy, in the words of Dick Grossman, were a perfect couple, just made for each other. And I have to say that whenever Brooke spoke of Dorothy, his eyes would twinkle a little brighter. Brooke was an avid skier, sailor, and tennis player. In talking with his wife Dorothy, she reminded me that they took several bareboat cruises in the British Virgin Islands and even Greece, where Brooke served as the captain. They didn't have a captain on the boat. Brooke was the captain. However, Dorothy did remind me that they never were away for more than 2 weeks because, as you know, Brooke needed to get back to the office. Brooke began to practice law in 1953 and soon established himself as one of the premier trust and estate lawyers in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The books and publications which he authored or co-authored are still the go-to books for estate lawyers in Pennsylvania. These include The Law of Wills, Pennsylvania Probate Estates and Fiduciaries Code, Hunter's Orphans Court Commonplace book, and the Fiduciary Review and Fiduciary Reporter, to name a few. Brooke was listed in Best Lawyers for 22 years, from 1987 until 2009. He was a member of the American College of Trust and Estate Counsel. If I went into all of Brooke's accomplishments, I would probably use up all of my allotted time and the time of the next speaker. I was fortunate to be hired out of law school to work for Smith, Aker, Grossman, and Hollinger, and to learn estate litigation from Brooke. It was a little intimidating when I realized that every book I was using for research was written by Brooke, who I worked for. Having been honored with the daunting task of presenting Brooke's memorial, I reached out to some of the attorneys who knew him best. Joe McDonald recalled how often he would be working on a complex matter, and suddenly through the office, Brooke would be circulating a paper just on point for an article written for the Fiduciary Review. James Mannion reminded me that one time after he became a partner of Brooke's, he showed up at the Penn Street office after a snowstorm and found Brooke and M. Paul Smith out front shoveling the parking area. Judge Ott also graced me with some memories, as he said, a short one and a long one. Judge Ott recalled after being thrust into the job of the Orson Court judge that he had the benefit of being mentored by Senior Judge Taxis for several years. And as anybody who knew Judge Taxis knew, he was the most humble and modest man ever. The closest Judge Ott ever heard Judge Taxis come to boasting was when he told Judge Ott how he had interviewed Brooke coming out of law school and then recommended to Paul Smith that he, Smith and Taxis, that they hire him. He allowed as to how that was a pretty good move on their part, and I think it really was. Judge Ott recalled how after he had gotten married, about a week after that, his father-in-law came to him and said, you know, you and Judy really need some wills. And he felt that he didn't want to blow one of his first assignments in his married life, so he was going to follow up on that. Problem was he didn't know anybody to go see, and at the time he was going to be clerking for Judge Lau, making the princely sum of $8,475 a year. So he asked Judge Lau, who should he go see? And Judge Lau, without even hesitating, said, there's only one place to go. You must see Brooke Aker. So he made the appointment. He and Judy met with Brooke and returned a week later to review and sign their wills. Judge Ott's biggest concern at that time was whether he had enough money in his checking account to pay the bill. When they were finished, he pulled out his checkbook and asked Brooke, "What do we owe you?" Brooke looked at him for a minute and said, "Let's just call this professional courtesy." Judge Ott recalls he still had to fight back the tears from such a gracious gesture. 20 years after that, while walking into the annual Bar Association dinner, Judge Ott ran into Brooke and reminded him of that experience and told him how much it meant to him as a young lawyer to have been treated so graciously by, as Judge Ott called him, a titan of the bar. Brooke said he didn't remember, and upon reflection, Judge Ott concluded that Brooke had probably done similar things throughout his career so that he really did not recall it. And one of the important things here is, despite his well-earned accolades, what Judge Ott recalls most about Brooke is his character. He was the best at what he did professionally, but always a gentleman. One of my favorite Brooke Aker stories happened right after I started working for him. He taught me a lesson I still use today and have passes on to younger lawyers I know. I had a client who was involved in some nasty litigation with her son. My client was convinced that the son's lawyer was just taking everything the son said as the gospel truth. So I prepared a pleading supporting my client's point of view. I had Brooke take a look at it. Brooke reviewed it, and when he was done, looked up and said, "This is pretty good. Just one thing. Before you file it, the lawyer for the son is a couple doors down. I want you to go down there and read what you have written to him before you file it." I got the message and rewrote the pleading to take out a lot of what was said about the other lawyer. And that's something which I think is really important today, is to make sure that you are courteous to others. And it was a lesson Brooke taught me that I still use today. Brooke was a true gentleman, a professional in all aspects of the word. He enjoyed teaching and giving his time back to the profession. He took phone calls from friends and lawyers he didn't know. He led by example, and his professionalism was beyond reproach. The Montgomery Bar is better for having had Brooke as a member. I respectfully request that these remarks be transcribed and made a permanent part of the records of this honorable court, and that copy delivered to J. Brooke Aker's family. Thank you for this opportunity.